So if you guys can throw some light in terms of how you want to do. So you have worked with so many organizations. What are your thoughts on this?
See, in most cases, the red teams that I have seen are specialized organizations who do red team work. And the blue team is your own IT security, detect, respond, recover team, which is your SOC team. Okay. Now, what happens in most cases is, at least what I'm seeing today in India, with the clients that we're working, there is a lot of understanding, a very high level understanding at senior management of this red team concept and blue team concept. And they want to get this rolling. And that's where they're talking to consultants like me, where I am now working with them in conducting red team exercises, but it is more covert in nature. As in, there is no blue team. They might have a blue team, but the blue team has no clue something of this nature is in progress. Now, the reason why I'm seeing a lot of traction on this side is because the senior management wants to know what can be done. But I'm sure a couple of cycles later, what will happen is they will bring into confidence once, let's say, the first set of reports go out and then they see something happening like this, they would like to then bring in their blue teams, enhance their blue teams such that they can then start working in a standardized fashion, which typically a red team, blue team works, which is what probably is working at Target, where you have a specific date. These people also have informed of the date, but not of the scenarios and objectives. And then the exercises are conducted, post which there will be a debrief session of what went right and what went wrong. Today, it's more covert in nature and very, very APT driven and scenarios, objectives defined. And that's how it is right now, at least.
Sorry, I might be stepping into some of the area where consultants don't want to talk about. If I have to pick a consultant for red team, what are the things I should be looking into? I think that's one question which most of us in the industry will like to be answered. And I think it's good to hear this from you and KK in terms of, and I know that you must be selling this as your key differential points, but what, as an industry leader, I should be looking into?
I would not recommend any specific consultant, but what I would like you to have is have a healthy discussion on the approach that they plan to take. For example, when I talk to a client, I try to say that, okay, I'll do 3 objectives for you. First objective, by hook or crook, be it internet, intranet, or let's say VPN, I will get into your organization and extract an email from the senior management's PSD file. This is objective 1. Scenarios could be different, access types could be different. Second scenario is, I will get into your organization and make a transaction on one of your support systems, be it a timesheet application or let's say an internal application. I'll make a transaction. And third, I will make sure I'll insert a malware into 10 of your desktops and they will have a reverse shell back to me. Now, these 3 objectives, when I put it, basically what I'm trying to say is your senior management needs awareness because they don't know phishing attacks. Second is, when you're talking about application security, internally you will enhance your application and technology. And third is user awareness because of the malware attacks. So with these 3 objectives, they will then start moving into various initiatives of what else to do within the organization. Now these are the 3 objectives I use. But there could be other consultants who will have different types of objectives to meet requirements and probably sell the entire red team concept.
Let's hear from KK.
So I think when we look at the guys to put on a red team assessment, we are looking at 3 ways in which we can get into an organization. One is I cross the physical barrier, I con the guy at the security guard at the gate and the reception, then I'm in. Second is I'm looking to social engineer somebody and plant a malware through email or a download link. And third is, the traditional penetrate through your perimeter. So when you're evaluating a company and you probably want to talk to the guys that the company is saying will do the assignment, I think you need to ask them simple questions. How will you cross my physical barrier? What are the ways in which you've conned guards and the receptionist to get into my network? Let's say you're in my network. What are you going to do next? Answer you're expecting is I'll look for a conference room, I'll try to connect my laptop. Oh, but we have a NAC. How will you try to bypass the NAC? These are questions. Are you aware of tools like Mimikatz? How do you run a pass the hash attack? How do you do privilege escalation? Let's say you get admin on one server, but you're not domain admin. How will you jump to domain admin. I think these are very simple 10 or 12 questions you could ask them. So for me, I think the key is still not the technical skills, because personally, I'm not good at this, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't have the gumption to con the physical guard. I can't do that. I've tried it, so I'll get caught. So, I'm amazed at the sorts of guys who are technically very competent, and then can con the receptionist and sweet talk. I mean, we did an assignment where we actually gave the receptionist a USB and asked her to print on her own printer, and then owned her system right in front of her. So I don't think I would have been able to pull that off personally. And the second thing is social engineering. I think that's a fantastically important skill. Throughout the entire engagement, you're going to be socially engineering, which is a nice way of saying conning people, throughout the stages. So the technical aspects, I think, what we often find is once we're inside, it's not that difficult to go deeper. So the tougher skills from my perspective are these, and these are some of the questions that you could ask these the teams.
Thanks, Sony. Thanks, KK, for sharing your trade secrets. A bit of insight into that. And I think yes. So I think if I have to put what you just shared in a perspective, it should be talk to a consultant if you are bringing a red team assignment, talking a red team assignment with them. That hey, test my culture, because whatever like you mentioned about social engineering, I think the final aspect is awareness, training, and it all can be put together as a culture of the organization with respect to information security. And I think, so in hitting your point, I think the focus should be, don't give me a clean report, I want to see red report. It's a red team assignment, show me that you can do this stuff. I think that should be a good measure of putting a red team assignment with a consultant. I'll bring back to Sumit. Sure.
Slightly different, but taking a leaf on whatever has been discussed. In my years of experience that I've been out there on the field, and it is very relevant to the India market. We tend to copy what is done in the US or the Europe, the developing countries, and there's absolutely no denying that fact. Those markets are very mature in terms of understanding on the importance of breaches of attacks happening. Now, when I reach out to organizations, something which is which comes out very openly is that what if there is a problem within? No, but there's a deniability factor. People do not want to come out in the open and say that yes, it has affected me. And as long as organizations continue to live in that, security will always be a problem. And that's why I think, while Sony was talking in terms of external consultants, regular VAPTs that organizations do will always be adjusted. The final reports will always be adjusted. And I'm being very blatant. It'll be adjusted. Because nobody really wants to, show that yes, they have a problem. But to the first point that we had we had that kind of a cyber drill exercise as part of a process which is already inculcated in your policies, and you make that as a practice? What Sumit was saying was make it repeatable. But what you're doing here is inherently you're asking your own people to communicate with each other, understand their problem, understand where it actually hurts, and to come out with it. You continue to do that, and you would not care if an external consultant comes in and says, boss, here is your letter. You have security solutions, but today, none of these security solutions are integrated well enough to give you a visibility.
The teams are not integrated.
The teams are not integrated. And it'll continue to happen. And it'll continue to happen till the fact that I feel confident that yes, the steps that I've taken are preventive enough, have ensured security is not 100%, can never be, will never be. Even if I'm able to protect 70% of my assets, I think I've done a commendable job.
Yes.
And that can only happen if I have that confidence in the team that I have.
So Thanks, KK. Sudipto. And I will, I will touch back on that integrated approach, that collaboration between the team. But I want to bring Sumit you on the spot. When you say that you have an internal red team and you conduct this exercise on a regular basis, it would be important to know for us how you pick that team, what characteristics you look. And I think that organization structure question falls more on your part, and probably I have my own thought because the way we do things and our perspective, I'll bring that after you.
Sure. So I think I'll first probably address how we pick people for that. So it's not a separate standalone team, right? These are people who come from the same cybersecurity team, and what Target has done is we've established 2 years ago a cyber fusion center. And what we mean by fusion is something very different. This is where a lot of different kinds of skills, not just people who know SIM and antivirus, but people who understand intelligence and how intelligence is gathered, people who understand how do you actually make the intelligence actionable, because intelligence is no good if it's not actionable, as well as people who would help respond to situations, right? So all of that comes together as part of our Cyber Fusion Center. And as I think my colleagues here were sharing, of course, all those technical skills that you talked about are a given for someone who has to be on a red team. But I think for us, what really makes someone differentiate is people, as I said, who can really use real-world, grounded scenarios and bring them into life for people to really learn from. So that's probably an add-on skill above the technical skills that are needed for people to be part of red teams. Organizationally, probably hopefully that gives you an idea that it's not set up to be an island, right? The whole idea is that using the red and blue, what is also called as purple in the industry, we really move towards the purple, and that's where we are. That's where both the teams can sit together in real life situations when they're not testing and actually use the strengths of each other. So I don't think organizationally it is so much of an issue for us, but it depends on skills. How well can we practically use those skills to make something meaningful? Yeah.
Thanks, Sumit. I'll share my perspective, team. We realized this problem about a few years back that the red team concept or the security testing team was putting a successful attack or a red report as a badge of honor against the blue group. We realized that, and Sumit threw in a word of cyber fusion. I think we as a mature organization, and I believe that we are having a mature InfoSec culture, have a similar concept. Our Cyber Fusion Center have representation from, as just like Sumit said, from different teams, different corners. One key element to there is having the business owners as part of this Cyber Fusion Center, which helps me to understand. So when going back to your point where CISO sits and look at the asset inventory and say, these 5 are my critical boxes, let's look at them. But we have our business folks telling us how those 5 systems are actually interconnected with the least important system in that chain. And then we look at the entire chain with the same level of criticality. Today, the way we are structured is that we have our red or blue team, whichever way you want to call it. I tend to call them team who test my systems, team who defend them, rolling up to the same group. That helps us that as a group we have the same objective and KPIs, that how after each drill, what the value addition we have done. Have we seen the same use case being successful this time by the attacking team, or we were able to defend that, and what was the response time? Those are the KPIs we look at. We do have, and then we call them as a purple team, the way you call it. We have, FIS has a, green is our color, so we call them as a green team. We do use external consultant. I believe it's at most important, looking at the changing landscape, looking to have that external viewpoint into my environment. We call them the hunt team. there is an engagement team and only CISO knows when they are going to hunt, what they are hunting, and then we have a equally interesting and collaborative session with them. So that's how we are structured, and I think it's a hybrid model between what Sumit is doing and Sony. The way you said that we work here in India.
Yeah, and if I can just add to your point, I think absolutely with you. I think for a lot of people probably who are looking to set up this capability, it doesn't happen on day one. So you absolutely need people like here who provide this as an expertise. But of course, in a long run, I think the effort should be to build your own capability, because the way your own people understand your environment and can test it would never be as good as people from outside. They may be successful, but this is not a one-time thing. This is an ongoing process. So absolutely, you need that support to stand up the capability, but recommendation would be to kind of then build your own.
So on a lighter note, typically when we work with clients, right, as consultants, and I will speak for KK also, when you do a pen test engagement, a pen test engagement has these issues, and these issues are categorized red, yellow, green, and some of them are info. Now, while you're having those issues that's being discussed with the client, they get diluted as they move upwards to management. In most cases, highs becomes mediums, and sometimes I see them becoming blues, which are infos or informational kind of issues. But when you do a red team job, there is no red, green, blue. It is, have you got it or not? And the messaging there is the client will not really discuss with you these options of changing the rating and things like that, because this is a disaster now, right? And so they will go all for it to fix it. So it's a better report. Only thing is, when we give a red team report, while we are being very descriptive in the method of how this was executed, we also have to get back and say that next time when we are working on this, these are extra KPIs, be it security controls you need to apply or process changes you need to have from your SOC team to address this situation. But trust me on it, the second time a red team does the same scenario, they will get in again. So you need to constantly, it's a fight that you have to go on changing your processes and technical controls to make sure those scenarios are addressed every now and then. Yeah.
And I agree with you, and that's the reason we don't use red team as we call them the hunt teams. If they get it, they get in. There is no rating on that. You got in. That's it. Period. Now I want to move away from testing, vulnerability scanning, and I think we have Sudipto. I want to make most of you on this panel. I think we need to talk about war-like scenario situation for DDoS attack, which is one of the focus area in today, especially for a retail giant like Target. And yes, and with you owning a cyber range, what are your takes in terms of how an organization, and I think we all will agree that it's imperative that we try to simulate that on a cyber range rather than doing it on our own scenario unless we attain that maturity. So going by that disclaimer, so what are your recommendations if somebody is looking to go down that path for the very first time?
Involve all the business process owners. Very important. You cannot isolate them. They understand the flow of information as happens. Technology is just there to aid them, right? So when we are talking in terms of, and I'll touch base upon red, blue team again, the purple team, so-called. Now these are the people, the purple team would be something who will define the objectives of the rules for the engagement. And again, I'm saying it all bogs down to the processes that you've defined, of what within your risk management plan is part of your most critical infrastructure. Once you have identified that, get those business process owners in place. You cannot isolate them from the system at all. You cannot work in silos. So when we engage with customers, what we say is that, well, I can help you emulate your production environment, and that is where the crux is. How do I ensure minimum amount of downtime? How can I ensure a minimum amount of churn? Loss of information. Now, for that to happen on the production environment, the best way would be to go ahead and emulate your own production environment in an isolated network. So that gives you a glimpse of what you would be playing had it been there, real life. Once you have modeled that and the objectives have been defined, the process of collaboration between, let's say, us and the other team becomes very, very important. I will never be able to do justification to your needs if we do not sit across and collaborate on that front. And it requires time and investment. It is not just like drag and drop. It is not automation. It is not. But having said that, once you've done that, once you've modeled your network, you've engaged people, you've brought in your own folks who are managing them. So the blue team, that is where it comes in. Your blue team comes in, and they start looking at the way things are moving. Now, the actual essence of emulation would be to have that same kind of a production feel. And when I'm talking in terms of the production feel, it would be emulating the kind of traffic that it is subjected to. And no matter what simulated environment you look in, you will be able to model, but you will never be able to get a realistic feel if it is not subjected to the traffic that your application or that your services are subjected to on a day-to-day basis. But if I can have that, if I can have the traffic coming in just the way it is happening in your daily operations, it becomes even more important, because what if during that period of operation I sneak in a malware? What if during that period I use evasion techniques, fast protocols, and go ahead and create mayhem? And this is what typically your DDoS, for example, that is how it will work. Mira on IoTs, it's been in news all over.
Same. Yep.
Today I read, just about 3 days ago, there's a Floki bot which is out on the market. And the Floki bot actually uses, it's a code written from the Zeus, the infamous Zeus. But then it's been modified with certain dropper capabilities, which allow it to cause denial of services from inside the network and not from outside. And that is what is very, very alarming. People have a vision that DOSes are all happening from external to internal.
Yep.
But what if my own machines are compromised within? What if the denial of service happens from inside and not from the outside? I might use CAPTCHA, for example, for a two-way authentication. But the internal networks don't utilize CAPTCHA. I can brute force anytime that I would want to. I could password crack anytime that I would want to. And these are the kind of challenges that you have when you're dealing in terms of denial of services. It's just not about bringing down resources. It's bringing down services. And it does not matter. It does not matter how. But the fundamental point being that I should have that capability to emulate normal operation traffic, both stateful and stateless. And during this course of time, whether the teams responsible